Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're tackling a massive, incredibly universal issue that honestly touches almost every single one of us at some point, and that is modern exhaustion. We live in a world where our energy levels totally dictate our success, our happiness, and our peace of mind. But when we inevitably hit a wall, we often have absolutely no idea why. So let's get focused and figure out exactly what is draining our batteries. To hook right into our core topic, I want you to ask yourself this. Have you ever stared blankly at your laptop with tasks literally piling up to the ceiling and thought, am I just being incredibly lazy today, or am I genuinely burnt out? It's a really heavy question, isn't it? And it usually brings a tremendous amount of guilt right along with it. Well, today we are going to unpack that guilt and figure out exactly what's going on inside your brain and your body. Section 1. The exhaustion epidemic and the modern grind.
Look, we are currently living through what can only be described as an exhaustion epidemic. We're constantly bombarded with messages from social media and this whole hustle culture that glorifies endless productivity. Because society kind of vilifies rest, taking a pause suddenly feels like a personal failure. And when we internalize that immense societal pressure, it actually forces us to mislabel our own fatigue. Think about it. When you aren't allowed to rest safely, you start confusing a perfectly natural temporary slump with a really deep, dangerous level of systemic exhaustion.
Section 2. Defining the divide.
So to solve this, we have to establish a clear baseline. Now, on the surface, both of these states look exactly like procrastination, right? You just aren't doing the work. But burnout, the World Health Organization officially recognizes this as an occupational phenomenon. It's chronic stress. It is a systemic, whole-body depletion of your physical and mental resources. Laziness is entirely different. It's just a temporary dip. It's a lack of motivation, or honestly, simply your brain actively making the choice to rest. One is a severe condition, and the other is just a motivational hiccup.
Okay, let's dive into this checklist from TimeStripe to see where you might fall on the spectrum. Here are 6 distinct distress signals of burnout. Number 1, you are exhausted even after a full weekend of rest. Number 2, severe focus struggles. Like that intense brain fog where you can't even string a sentence together. 3, physical symptoms start piling up. Headaches, tight muscles, you're always catching a cold. 4, you feel cynical or detached from projects you used to love. 5, you physically and mentally just cannot switch off from work mode. And 6, emotional suffering, like sudden, unexplainable irritability or anxiety.
Now, if you don't check the boxes on those intense distress signals, well, you might actually just be dealing with laziness. Laziness is simply an emotional disinclination to activity, despite actually having the physical ability to act. And listen, it isn't inherently evil, and it certainly doesn't mean you're a bad person. It's often just a surface-level symptom of pure boredom or a massive sign that your current goals are totally misaligned with your core values. It's not a medical depletion of your energy.
Section 3. The science of sloth.
To truly master our energy, we need to look under the hood and explore the biological reasons why our bodies sometimes just flat out refuse to cooperate. I absolutely love this concept of satisficing. From an evolutionary standpoint, animals out in the wild do not endlessly optimize their productivity. They just don't. They forage for food only until their needs are met, until they're satiated, and then they stop. They rest to conserve energy. So historically speaking, doing absolutely nothing once your basic needs are met is actually a highly efficient, hardwired survival strategy.
And this evolutionary trait manifests directly in our modern brains. Neuroscience featured in The Guardian shows that apathy and laziness are tied directly to dopamine. When a task doesn't promise a significant dopamine release, basically when the reward seems too small, your brain makes you intolerant to exerting effort. It's not that you're lacking character. Your brain is literally just performing a harsh cost-benefit analysis and deciding the effort just isn't worth the low-value payoff.
Section 4. Ancient Wisdom, Modern Fixes.
What's wild is that Eastern philosophy actually diagnosed these exact same motivational blocks centuries before we ever mapped out dopamine pathways. In Ayurvedic medicine, there's a concept called the kapha dosha, which represents the earth and water elements in the body. When this becomes imbalanced, it causes a profound sense of heaviness, lethargy, and sleepiness. Notice how beautifully this ancient concept perfectly describes the exact same heavy, unmotivated state that Western neuroscience blames on low dopamine. It's the exact same human experience, just viewed through 2 completely different lenses.
So how do we clear that heavy state out? The art of living highlights a foundational principle. As is the food, so is the mind. If you're eating heavily processed, sugary foods all day, you are actively destroying your prana, which is your vital energy. To keep the gut light and the mind sharp, the ancient prescription is fresh, sattvic foods. Simply put, what you put into your body directly dictates the energy your mind actually has to work with.
Now, if you need to snap out of a lazy state right this very second, Gurudev from The Art of Living shares these 3 powerful psychological levers. 1. Love. 2. Fear. And 3. Greed. Fear of a missed deadline creates sudden urgency, right? Greed for a bonus or reward gives you a nice push. But the most powerful one of all is love. When you are doing a task for someone you genuinely care about, your laziness instantly evaporates. Think about it. You'll get up and drive to the airport at 3 a.m. for a loved one without a second thought. Love overrides laziness entirely.
Actually, scratch that. Before any of those levers can work long-term, there is a crucial mental block you have to clear first. You must drop the label. Every single time you tell yourself, I am a lazy person, you internalize that identity. And when you believe it's fundamentally who you are, it prevents any actual behavioral change. Dropping this label from your self-talk is the absolutely necessary first step to your recovery.
Section 5. Taking the right action.
All right, armed with the science, the ancient wisdom, and the right mindset, we are finally ready to fix the problem. And as you'll see here, there is a massive difference in how we must treat these 2 states. If your core problem is burnout, which means you are fundamentally depleted, your primary solution has to be rest and boundaries. But if your core problem is laziness, meaning disinterest, your solution is finding momentum and changing your environment. The absolute most important takeaway from this entire explainer is this: you cannot cure burnout with productivity hacks, and you cannot cure laziness with a nap.
Let's start by fixing burnout specifically. If you went through our checklist earlier and diagnosed yourself with burnout, your immediate prescription is aggressive rest and boundary setting. You must set hard limits. Make a strict rule of absolutely no work after 7 p.m., for example. You need to seek support from colleagues or professionals. Reassess your overwhelming workload using tools like the Eisenhower Matrix, and commit to daily mindfulness to actually help your nervous system recover.
Conversely, if you realize you're just dealing with laziness, taking a break will actually make it so much worse. You need to manufacture momentum. You do this by reconnecting with the larger purpose of your work. You can use the 2-minute rule. Literally just force yourself to do the task for a mere 120 seconds just to break the friction. Pick up your laptop, change your scenery to a local cafe, and set up some external accountability with a friend so you absolutely have to deliver.
To bring this all together, summarizing this blended East-West approach means recommending sustainable, lifelong habits. We must cultivate a personal culture of rest to ward off burnout, while maintaining gentle momentum to ward off laziness. Start incredibly small. Make a 20-minute daily commitment. Maybe it's a short walk outside, or perhaps practicing a breathing technique like Sudodarshan Kriya to naturally regulate your stress. Small, consistent actions are what balance the scales over time.
Which brings us to the very end of our explainer. I want to leave you with one final provocative thought. I really encourage you to take just 5 minutes today, sit quietly, reflect on your own energy levels over the last month or so, and ask yourself honestly, are you depleted or are you just uninspired? Figuring out the true answer to that is the first step to getting your life back. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey, and keep learning.